When does pity become harmful? Pity is awa. And what's the difference between pity and empathy? And how can you transform pity into generational resilience? Are Filipinos truly bilingual? We use the same language at home but speak in love languages foreign to each other. Together but separated. Kamusta? I'm Roanne, licensed psychotherapist mom, immigrant twice, first generation Pinoy raising my mixed Filipino-American children in America. I found that after visiting 500 Filipino homes, I continue to be a student of the culture. In this podcast, we would be seatmates in this beautiful cultural classroom. And by the way, did I tell you I need my kaping barako straight from Batangas before each class? If you're interested in learning the deep intricacies of the Filipino culture, especially as it merged with American culture, talks about trauma-informed care, and deepening your Filipino relationships across generations, which includes my fave topic, Pinoy love languages, you're in the right place. This episode is brought to you by the free assessment guide for Filipino women who want to stop feeling too much and finally good enough. This assessment guide will give you awareness on the emotional burnout that you're carrying and give you actionable tips to navigate family guilt and setting healthy boundaries. Link in the below to get your free guide. Kamusta po everyone? This is Roanne Samuels, your Filipino therapist, your podcast host for the Pinoy Love Language podcast. Marami pong salamat sa pakikinig. You know, some of you probably know that I also have a YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out, it's Kalamansi Juice TV. And it's really nice to record videos there. Most of the time, I'm really just sharing ideas, hoping the world will be a better place with just, alternate ways of seeing the world, usually in a more positive way. But, when I'm doing the podcast, it reminds me of being on the phone, like the actual land phone that has the wirings. I know when we tell kids now, hang up the phone, they'll be like, hang up where? But anyway, when I'm talking here, I feel like I'm talking to a friend. So thank you for being here. So we're talking about awa. Awa is pity. We often hear that in the Filipino culture. Ikawawa naman. Filipinos are maawain, right? And rightfully so. Marami po tayong mga kababayan na naghihirap. There's this social classes, there's hierarchy. And also the core value of the Filipinos is kapwa, is really at a young age we're taught to share, to think about others, to be considerate. And these are really wonderful characteristics of the Filipino. When I was studying in the Philippines, pag bumabagyo, when there's a typhoon, if you're already in school, they might broadcast, okay, uwian na. We'll be so happy because it's time to leave school. They're gonna cut the class into like maybe just half day because pag bumaha, when there's a flood, it takes a while. So even with that, even when we're happy, I remember my mom would tell me, wag ka masyadong masaya dahil may mga tao na pag bumagyo, yung mga bubong nila pwedeng lumipad. So there's a part where you're happy as a child, but then it's always this teaching of being considerate, thinking of others. So yung awa is, there's some value in it, but at the same time, I want to say that the value is on empathy. And I'll explain a little bit, okay? We say that empathy is feeling compassion for other people, to feel for someone, right? Like my example, ito po yung napakahalaga, very important. We often say it's stepping into somebody's shoes, okay? The problem sometimes is when we become the person whose shoes we step into, as if all things about the person is the same as you. Of course, there's many nuances. Parang katulad lang. You're like the other person. You could relate probably deeply, but the context of everything is very different because no two people are alike. I have twin girls. I'm a twin mama, and I know that to be true. Even if my girl shared my my womb, right? They're so different. Sometimes when we say step into somebody else's shoes, that causes what we call over identification. Okay, so let me give you an example. If you had an experience where you were regularly shamed by your mom, so napapahiya kayo ng mommy mo when you were a kid, your lens as an adult can be tainted that this same or similar situation can be a trigger for you if you see somebody, and it should be a trigger for everyone, but it's especially very triggering for you. Or you are the opposite. You might say, "Ay, wala lang, it's nothing. I had that same situation when I was a child." So either you're overly triggered or it's nothing at all. Both are over-identification because your reaction is not based on your own choosing or your own awareness, but on strategizing that you're trying to prevent or a feeling, a sensation, maybe it's fear or worry, to have that happen to you again. So sometimes the strategy would be like, ay, wala lang, okay, being numb, or it's no big deal. So I'm not saying that just because you have these reaction that your parents shame you. Of course not. But I'm just giving this as an example wherein when you're compelled to react in a certain way, as if you can't control yourself, just the way you are, you say, ay, ganito lang talaga ako. That's something to investigate. Okay, so another example is if you've had extremely strict parents, right? Other classmates could go out, but you're very different, because of your parents. They don't trust you. So it's likely, if you don't do anything, you will be like your parent. Or you could be overly permissive at the same time. And some people would say, see, I'm not like my parent. However, that's something to also investigate. It seems, that there's a ghost, right? There's a ghost. The other part is running on one side, but instead you run the opposite side. The point is there's still a ghost and you're trying to run away from that ghost, if that makes sense. So that thing that you're afraid of is still there because you almost are compelled to choose. When you're no longer compelled to choose, to me, that's more of a manifestation that you have processed or you've healed that very thing. Okay, so continue, and just another example how pity could be harmful. I talk about, pity is stepping into someone's shoes as if you're the person. Kumbaga, when you say, kung ako ikaw, I'll feel this way. So I feel bad, okay? And here's the harmful consequence. When you over-identify, you actually don't want the other person to feel bad because you were probably made to feel bad for whatever reason before. So you attempt to remove or minimize consequences because you feel bad and you don't want the other person to feel bad. You see the theme here, it's about feeling bad. Somebody made you feel bad. You're trying to prevent yourself from feeling bad and the other person from feeling bad, okay? Here are other ways that it can manifest, not just in your personal life. You might be very considerate of others, but very inconsiderate of yourself. Okay lang yan, kaya ko pa yan. Which is sometimes, it's not always a negative thing because I do like the resilience of many Filipinos. But there's a point where dapat hindi mo na siya kayanin. You probably need help, but kinakaya pa din. So also investigate that. Another is that I just mentioned you're parenting based on a strategy to not be like your parent. So the ghost is your experience with your parent. So you might not be running on the same direction that they did, but you're running the opposite way. Needless to say, you're still running. Okay? When you're able to run, to walk, or not do anything at all, it's all in your own choosing. That's probably when you've worked on this. Now, another one, okay? I've been in protests, even in the Philippines, but it could manifest in activism based on an activated nervous system. Here's the difference. There are really people who are, their heart is in activism, but most of the time, it's not like that's what they do, but it's like they don't have any other choice but maybe to protest, rather than you're protesting because it makes you come alive. You feel like you're a part of a group, or you over identify towards a group because you see yourself as part of that group, or you feel bad about that group. Okay. Another one that it can manifest is in your work. You might set poor boundaries or very rigid boundaries. It's extremely pity yourself at work, like, oh, I did everything, my boss did not even recognize me. So a feature of victimization, or you just keep saying yes also to requests. Okay, so again, the difference is you're compelled to do it. It's almost like there's a force, it's already been chosen for you. You don't have the agency. So how do we transform pity to empathy? How do we have some loving separation? We'll take a quick break. Diyan ka lang. If you're struggling to set boundaries with your family, with work, constantly second-guessing yourself, feeling the quiet pressure, this is for you. Download the self-assessment guide for Filipino women who finally want to feel good enough. If you're listening, if you're a kuya or a tatay or somewhere in between, and you're listening here, salamat po. Share natin to sa ating mga ates. The link to download the free guide is in the episode notes. Thank you, friends, for sticking around. How do we transform pity to empathy? So again, in pity, there's a feature of codependency, okay? That it's almost like you can't stand your son to have any type of hardship in life. And of course, we don't want our children to see them suffering. But it's this type of feeling that it overtakes you. Because our children do need natural consequences in life. It's called life, right? There's ups and downs. Now, when it's empathy, it gives the other person agency, option, okay? It gives them an opportunity for growth, for possibilities. Honestly, pity is a very ungenerous, it could be a selfish way to self-soothe yourself because you feel bad, so you're comforting the other. And sometimes it robs people an opportunity to learn more about themselves, to be the fullest expression of themselves. So what is a few solutions that you can do? Number one, get out of your own way. I know it's easier said than done. You need to find a way to ground your body. Something is happening when you're seeing somebody having a situation that is like, it feels like it's yours. So find a way to ground your body. There are some YouTube videos you can follow, but certainly you see a therapist. Number two, practice telling your own story, so you're not muddling that with other people's story. I mean, seriously, write it almost like you're writing your own autobiography. You can create an audio, just kind of, it doesn't have to be from birth to, but just from where you are, and tell your story. Be creative. It could be a cartoon, a comic strip. You just be more familiar with your story, and what you would find is that your story is actually similar, but it's not the same. Number three, you probably, when you say, ay, kawawa naman, everything is kawawa naman, and you're acting based on almost like wearing your emotions on your sleeves, you probably are using, like I said, emotions more when reacting. And emotions are great because it's heart-based, right? It's based on your sensation. We're not trying to run away from emotions, but perhaps balancing that with facts and logic might be helpful to you, because we do need both. That's why we have a brain and a heart. Sometimes we call it the conscious and the unconscious. We want those two to be aligned. Next, visualization. Imagine that the person that it's hard for you, whether it's your child, is doing hard things. Couldn't visualize that, and that they are able to succeed. So play that in your mind over and over and over again, because your interference is based on the fact that something bad is going to happen, because that probably has been your experience. So visualize, very important. Lastly, of course, seek a therapist if you need support, especially if this is ingrained in you. You could try some self-help strategies for sure, but if you find that this is the way that you have been operating, could you imagine a life that you're no longer imprisoned by awa? So just final thoughts. Pity is could be harmful. The feeling kawawa naman, it breeds hidden loyalties and resentment kasi there's an imbalance. Usually one is giving more, okay? But not usually from a joyful place, but from trying to prevent something bad from happening. And the hope that I'm giving you, friends, is that this could be transformed. You do deserve to live a life where your past does not dictate your present, but your present moment takes care of your future, where you could be very, very free. If you're interested in consulting with me, see if we're a good fit to consult for free, you can also find the link in the show notes. Marami pong salamat sa pakikinig at sa ulitin. Bye now!